grammar questions always say which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English. Conventions of standard English is just a very, very formal way of saying, excuse me, academic grammar. So for these, I've actually given you answer choices. Incredible. Wow, I never do that. And that's because the way we approach grammar is totally different from the way we approach every other reading question. There's a strategy that I got from way back, the SAT Black Book. I can't remember the author, but yeah, they're pretty famous. And he talks specifically about a vertical scan. That is, just let your eyes skim down the answer choices before you've even read anything and look for differences. So I love that vertical scan. I think it's very helpful for telling us what to think about for grammar questions specifically. So we're skimming down. I notice there's no difference in commas, but I notice we have like they and it and were and have. So I think, oh, this is like a subject verb agreement question, or you could think of it as a singular plural question. So I'm not reading the paragraph yet at this point. I'm just skimming down the answers. Now, there are some tips and tricks, of course, for grammar. And one of the big tips and tricks is for these subject-verb agreement or singular plural questions. If, and this is a big if we can find that 3 answers are plural and 1 is singular, then the one that's different is probably correct. Same thing vice versa. If you can find 3 singulars and then 1 is plural, that's probably correct. Although I think that's a bit less common. But let's see. So we have they are, it is, they were, and they have been as answers. It is the one that is singular. All the others are plural, so it's probably that. But let's check. Let's actually read the sentence. Does it make sense? The movement of tectonic plates shapes the Earth's surface, responsible for forming underwater. It is responsible. Yeah, I mean, it sounds really ugly, but the movement is the subject of tectonic plates is in a prepositional phrase, and prepositional phrases are not the main subject. Um, so it seems plausible to match with movement. Yeah. Okay. So the tip we learned there then was 3 plural, 1 singular. It's not always as obvious as that. It's often much harder to tell. This is a totally different tip. This is one that works much, if not all of the time. Again, we're going to ignore the paragraph for now. We're going to do a very quick vertical scan down the answers. I notice we have a period, comma, and more commas. So it seems like this is definitely a punctuation question, maybe clauses, run-on sentences. Those are the kinds of things we should be thinking about. Now, I noticed that we have 1 period, and we don't have anything else that's the same as a period. So a period is the same as a semicolon with only 1 minor exception. And that's the same as a comma fanboys. So if you're familiar with the fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So I'd say really and but and yet are some of the more common ones, but you do want to know the fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So these are all basically equivalent. They can all separate 2 sentences. So period, semicolon, comma, fanboys, they can separate 2 sentences. But here, only 1 answer choice could do that, right? We have a period, but we don't have any of these other things. Even a colon could maybe separate 2 sentences. It does sometimes. It doesn't require 2 sentences, but it could. But we don't have a colon. We have and, but it's missing a comma. So we could think of this as sort of a naked and or a lonely and, however you want to think of it, is an and without a comma. So I have 1 answer choice with a period, nothing else that's the same, and I have this naked and. I'm thinking these are all of the hints that we have a pick the period question. So I'm going to check because we do want to check, right? Like maybe it's not going to be a thing. So we want to make sure it works. But when we have 1 answer, that's a period or a semicolon, and then a naked and with no comma, typically what they want to find out is, do you know this rule? Do you know that and needs a comma to separate 2 sentences? Or do you think it's fine? Because fine. Well, not on the SAT. All right. So let's find out, does a period work? Let's read our sentence. All the way to the end, always all the way to the end. Well, to the period. If the paragraph goes on, we don't care, but have to go all the way to the period. Soil is formed from the weathering of rocks and the decomposition of organic matter, period. It is a slow process, often taking thousands of years. Yep, that's 2 sentences. So period works. Our answer is going to be A. So yeah, quick note on what to read and what not to read. So for these conventions of standard English grammar questions, we always want to read period to period. You might have a long paragraph, but you don't usually need more than just the sentence, but you need the whole sentence because there will often be sentences that look like they're going to do one thing, but then it ends up being a run-on sentence and we didn't even notice and we did it wrong. So you always want to read like period to period, so the full sentence that the blank is in all the way to the end, but you don't necessarily need to read the rest of the paragraph because it's not asking you about main idea. Now that's quite different when you start doing transition word questions like however, for example, nonetheless, all of those are they're meaning related. But periods and commas, they're really just rule related. Do you have a subject? Do you have a verb? That kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to do another quick skim down the answer choices. We're going to do this vertical scan. I notice that it seems to be singular plural, like is, are, have, maybe verb tense as well. Sometimes you will have a verb tense question, but often the ones that seem like they're about past and present tense are actually about singular plural. Now, how can I tell what's singular and plural? Well, maybe you already know, but a good way to do it is to just plug in a singular subject, such as like it or he or she, and then a plural subject like we or they. Um, okay, so let's just plug it in. It, have, they have. That's plural. It, were, they were, they, yeah, okay, plural. All right, so yeah, we've got, I wrote it instead of singular. I'll just say a singular. We got one singular, we got 3 plural. It probably is. Okay, let's actually check. Is there a singular subject that could make sense here? The Andromeda Galaxy, a spiral galaxy far from Earth, is thought to be on a path. Yep, that works. The galaxy is thought to be on a path. Um, Now, how can we actually find that subject? We can use our comma phrase. Yeah, so we've got a comma before this, we've got a comma after it, and that indicates this is our non-essential comma phrase. It's just describing the galaxy. It could basically be crossed out, and then our sentence would be simpler, which is say this galaxy is thought to be on a path. Yeah. So there we have it. This rule, I mean, this trick really does seem to work. So honestly, if it were me and I were short on time, which most people are, I would do a quick skim down. I would say, is, are, have been, were. Oh, it is. That's singular. That's different. I'm going to pick A. I'm not even going to read it. I'm just going to mark it for review and I'm going to go on. Then at the end, I'll go back and actually read it and find the subject and double check my answer. And then when you review, you just click on this little thing down here, and it'll pop up everything with a flag that you can just go back and read. I think it's a good idea in general to use mark for review if you didn't read a chunk of text, because then you can review by reading the thing that you skipped. Okay, so same thing here, right? We skim down. We can say, okay, it has covered, they cover, it covers, it is covering. Oh, they cover is the one that's different. So that's our answer. And our subject is monarch butterflies cover. We could cross out this comma phrase of known for their lengthy annual migration to warmer climates. We see our subject is butterflies cover. Same thing here. Oh, actually not the same thing here. So this is a different type of trick. So we have covered, just to recap, we have covered a few different tricks. We have covered the singular plural 3 and 1 trick, where you have 3 plurals and 1 singular, or vice versa. You go with the one that's different. We have covered the pick the period, where again, you have 3 that are sort of the same, that they don't join 2 sentences. And then 1 that does. It could be a period, maybe a semicolon, probably not. Maybe. And you also have this naked and, so you know it's probably a pick the period. But you do want to check. And there is another trickier type, and that is the main verb versus not main verb. I don't know if anybody has a really creative name for this. If so, please let me know. But it basically means we can have main verbs like, I don't know, well, we'll talk about it. And then we have these sort of ing or infinitive to things that are not main verbs. For example, we can say I swim, or he swims, or they are swimming, but I wouldn't say I too swim. We could say I am going to swim, but I too swim, it's just missing something. Um, so these ing or to do verbs, they're not main verbs, but let's see what works here and which one is different. We have it remains. Okay, that could be like a subject and a verb. It remains. They remain. Okay, that could be a subject and a verb. Remaining. Well, there's no subject listed, but that also couldn't be a main verb. I couldn't say like they remaining or it remaining. Informal writing, that's missing something. We would have to say like it was remaining. So that's not a main verb. And then it is remaining. Again, it could be the subject and is remaining could be the verb. So this one is different. So it's probably this one. Now let's actually read the sentence. Oh, but it's not. I did a trick. Whoa. Whoa, I tricked myself. Let's have a look. To this day, remaining one of her beloved novels. Oh, that doesn't work. So we'd have to actually find our subject. So this actually, the last time I saw this, I was also like, whoa, this trick didn't work. But I kept it in intentionally because the tricks might not work and you might actually have to read. So it's always good to read. All right, so I'm like, no, I didn't like that. I'm taking it out. To this day, blank one of her beloved novels. All right, let's see what, I mean, one seems like it's probably singular, but let's just check. Jane Austen published Pride and Prejudice. Okay, comma, phrase, one of her most famous novels. So that's just describing Pride and Prejudice. I'm going to cross that out. So Jane Austen published Pride and Prejudice in 1813, describing aspects of English society. Oh, that's a different sentence up to the period, so I don't even care. But Pride and Prejudice is definitely one book. To this day, it remains one of her beloved novels. Yeah, it's A. It's A.